There's a very low percentage of this that is smiles and glory holes.
A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend with weed is better. A friend with breasts and all the rest. A friend who's dressed in leather. A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend who'll tease is better. Our thoughts compressed, which makes us blessed and makes for stormy weather. A friend in need's a friend indeed. My Japanese is better. And when she's pressed, she will undress. And then she's boxing clever. A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend who bleeds is better. My friend confessed she passed the test. And we will never sever. Days dawning, skins crawling. Days dawning, skins crawling. Days dawning, skins crawling. Days dawning, skins crawling. Pure morning, pure morning, pure morning, pure morning. A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend who'll tease is better. Our thoughts compressed, which makes us blessed and makes for stormy weather. A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend who bleeds is better. My friend confessed she passed the test, and we will never sever. Days dawning, skins crawling. Days dawning, skins crawling. Days dawning, skins crawling. Days dawning, skins crawling. Pure morning, 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 pure morning. A friend in need's a friend indeed. My Japanese is better. And when she's pressed, she will undress. And then she's boxing clever. A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend with weed is better. A friend with breasts and all the rest. A friend who's dressed in leather.
I'm not quite sure why I'm here or what I'm doing, but there's a reason. I don't like Facebook, and I don't like the internet. The library blocked my password. Now tell me, does that make any sense to you?
This is absolutely lit. This is lit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dark Times with Dark Matt Steve. I am Dark Matt Steve. You guessed it. God damn, you're a genius. We're going to need smart people in the chat tonight. Guys, tonight it is a debate review live. We're on the high wire. We're on the tightrope. Live in the flesh debate review. What it do? Tonight we're taking a look at a debate between Andrew Wilson and what's his name? Dr. Zuckerman, Berg, something? I don't know. Yeah. We're taking a look at this. Now, guys, this is fairly new, unless it was re-uploaded or something. But I just watched like about the at least the first 45 minutes of this debate. And there's a few things that came up in it that we've actually discussed on the stream here, talking about where rights come from and this kind of thing. And I just thought it would it'd be fun to watch Andrew Wilson dog walk this secular humanist. Now, this is the thing. I like Andrew Wilson. We've reviewed plenty of his stuff on here. I totally respect the guy. I disagree with him on a bunch of stuff, but I do love Andrew Wilson. I do, and I love watching his debate stuff. And and he'll always have a special place in my heart because of what he did to Matt Dillahunty. And even though I like some of Matt Dillahunty's stuff, this is the thing, is I wish we could see Matt Dillahunty and Andrew Wilson spar again. But I just don't know if that is ever possible. Andrew Wilson does have a spicy nature to his debate style. And, he could be aggressive in a way. He's not a complete asshole. I feel like Andrew Wilson is one of those people that's fairly good at like matching energy, where he usually doesn't go too far. There've been a few times where he, like when the one chick tried to confront him about his wife having like, other baby daddies and stuff, and he kind of lost his shit. But that's kind of rare with Andrew. He's normally pretty level-headed and tries to have fun in the debates, and but again, I don't agree with him on it. I'm not a Christian. But this, I think Andrew Wilson certainly dominates through the first 45 minutes. Everything I've seen of this debate, he pretty much dominates. I think there are some fairly good points that might be worth discussing that the doctor brings up as well. So yeah, let's get right to it, guys. Let me get to the chat. I'll get you guys up on the screen. Say hello to everybody trickling in here, and then we'll get started. Let's see here. Andrew Wilson. Oh, and as you guys know, we've got. Now, this is where I'm going to need the chat, guys, because, sometimes I start hitting the bong. I start just talking shit, and I don't pay attention. So I'm going to need you guys to help me. We've got the Andrew Wilson cigarette tracker here, okay? You guys know this is half of the reason we do Andrew Wilson debate reviews. It's stunning how many cigarettes this man can smoke during one debate. I think, how many do we have here? Got up to 5, 6. So we first started this because famously Andrew Wilson debated the streamer Destiny about January 6th and whether it was an insurrection. Famously, he smoked about 3 packs of cigarettes during that debate, and it was about, a 2.5 hour debate, something like that. So we got to keep track here. I need your help, chat, for real. I actually do. You guys need to tell me if I miss when he lights a new one. That's what we're looking for, guys. When he lights a new one, and we'll see if I got to make new banners. We only go up to 6 here. I don't know if some of them got deleted. I know he smokes more than 6 cigarettes per. When we got out, we have I already saw him in the chat. Fat Pig is in the chat. And we also have a Fat Pig cigarette counter here too, where we track. This is our tracker for all of the people that come on here and smoke cigarettes. So yeah, it's gonna come in handy tonight, guys. All right, let's get rid of that for a second. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let me get to the chat. All right, I got you guys up here. There you go. Guys, I don't have time to I know I normally fluff you guys up a little bit right when we get started. I don't have time to it. Let's just all right. That's it. That's all you get. Okay. Bud and Knives, welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. Fat Pigs in here. What's up, lover? We got your cigarette counter in here too, just in case. Johnny Z's up in here. And by the way, guys, we're not doing a super. I gotta get out of here fairly early, actually. So we're gonna put this debate in like 10x speed. We're gonna get through it in 15 minutes. Okay. Sorry guys. Johnny Z's up in here. Johnny Z, do you not see me when I respond to you in Scott Starbird's chat, my dude? You always I feel like I see you saying that I ignore you. I don't think you notice when I tag you. Or is it because I don't actually tag you? I just put your name. Promos up in here. We got mods, guys. We got mods. We're gonna need them. Mods, I need extra help with the cigarette counter tonight, guys. We're taking this seriously. This is a real stream we're doing here. Kenny Powers up in here. Thank God I got another mod. Hutch is in here. Maddie P's up in here. What's up, Maddie? What's up, sir? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for modding in here. Guys, being a mod in this channel is a big deal. You can put this on your resume. You could basically get hired to run SpaceX. There are people who used to mod this channel who were in charge of launching Artemis today. Artemis 2. Eat More's up in here. What's up? Being a mod on this channel is something to strive for. Thomas G's up in here. What's up, my G? Scott Starbird. What's up, lover? Dan the Man's in here. What's up, Dan? Welcome. How's it going? Love this song. Hell yeah. Placebo's awesome. So Placebo has a lot of great songs, but I'm a huge fan of Placebo. But honestly, guys, if I'm being real, most people are straight, and so there's quite a bit of feminine energy with the singer of Placebo, and sometimes it's not so overbearing, like in the intro song, Pure Morning. And there's other really good songs by them that aren't I don't give a fuck. I like all their music pretty much, but I'm just saying in terms of, I know most people aren't like me where they have no reservations about enjoying like, a feminine male singing in a band. I know that's not for everybody. Okay. So I'm just being real with you guys. Truth is up in here. What's up? Thanks for joining us, Truth. Tampa Terry's in here. JD Vance's huge podcast appearance with Benny Johnson in Tampa is going mega viral, bro. JD Vance is the king of Tampa. Ugh. Bro, no. JD Vance, I mean, if you want the CIA to just straight up run the whole country, then, I mean, sure. Vote for him. Support him. Chris Thompson's in here. What's up, bro? Terry, we're just going to have to agree to disagree about JD Vance. I've learned that, and I'm trying to maintain a healthy relationship with you, even though you like JD Vance. It's not easy. I hope you understand that it's not easy for me. I love you, and that's why. What are you saying, Dan the Man? That's exactly right, Steve. That's what I've observed too. Andrew Wilson will match energy. He went off on Chuck on the whatever podcast after taking tons of shit from her all night. Yeah, and so I didn't see. That's why I said I did notice. I saw that clip, and I did not watch the full thing. I don't know the full context, but I will say it seemed like at that moment he was touchy. I don't doubt that there was stuff that led up to that. The animosity, but what was I going to say? In that moment, though, it seemed like, it seemed undeserving, and like she was actually trying to make a point about his worldview and he probably, and they may have been fighting, and that he probably interpreted it as just more like shit talking. I don't know. You like the cigarette tracker? It's necessary. There's so many. He smokes so much. Michael Sheehan. Oh, it's Captain Iceland Mike. What's up, dude? Thanks for checking out over on the Facebook. Wherever you're at, guys, we're on Facebook, YouTube, and X, also known or Twitter, also known as X. If you're autistic, addicted to ketamine, and in them dang files, asking to go to that one island. So wherever you're at, get in the chat, guys. I got you all in one spot here. I'm not just giving extra love to the YouTube people. Bob Cook's up in here. What's up, Bob Cook? Bob Cook can cook. Oh, okay. Guys, I'm feeling a chill right now. What's the deal? Oh, it's Icy Birds in here. Guys, I felt it. I swear to God, I felt it. What's up, Icy? Thanks for joining us. All right, we're just about caught up, right? Did I skip anybody? Let's get over to the tubes. So yeah, guys, I thought this was really interesting to watch. So Andrew Wilson kind of, like I said, I think that's the term the kids are using, dog walks this guy. And if I'm using that correctly, it's interesting to watch. And I don't mean, I doubt the doctor's going to watch this. I don't mean offense to this doctor, because he seems like he's a smart guy, but he's not, he hasn't like really delved into this, where rights come from. It seems like he hasn't thought about it quite as deeply as maybe Andrew Wilson has. And this guy seems like he's going to walk out like Matt Dillahunty. There's a couple moments in this debate where there's a little bit of animosity, and it's not, I don't think it's actually intended by Andrew Wilson, and this guy interprets it wrong, and it seems like he's about to walk out. So, but as I was saying, it's interesting to watch somebody fully, like when you watch two people go to have a debate and you watch somebody, one side of the debate is clearly, they've thought a lot about a certain concept, and it's interesting to watch somebody that's debating them initially against what they're saying, and as I said, it's like you sort of walk them through it, and it sucks because it never looks good. It never looks good. It doesn't mean the person getting dog walked about a certain concept or whatever, it doesn't mean like their whole worldview is wrong or every argument they make is wrong, but it's just not a good look. It's kind of, whatever. Here, hold on a second. Let me get you guys to this tab. Why am I having connection problems? We're good, I think. Here we go.
Get them while you can. Who's got the sauce?
Zaxby's.
I don't want to over intro this because I want Andrew.
I did it.
I want Andrew Wilson to go through this and really explain it properly. But this is what we were talking about the other night, guys. Where rights come from and what are rights? Because people use that word a lot and actually haven't thought about it. It's pretty funny.
Vitamins get all the credit. Minerals do all the work.
Asking you.
Okay, let's go back. Where does this really start? Let's get their intros. We'll watch their intros too. Another ad. Please give us a Scrub Daddy ad. Please, Scrub Daddy, please. Scrub Daddy ad.
Thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours, Dr. Phil Zuckerman.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for having me. And I hope you don't mind the corncob pipe as my talisman here.
Bro, oh, fuck. We got Andrew Wilson's already on cigarette number 1. Guys, you were supposed to help me. I need help. He smokes a lot. Andrew Wilson, cigarette tracker. We've got already cigarette number 1 on here. Okay, let's go, guys. Lock in. I'm serious. I need help with this. This guy has a corncob pipe. He should be smoking cigarettes. You need cigarettes if you want to keep up with Andrew, bro. Maybe try that for the next debate.
And I don't know Andrew, but I know that the more kind of cantankerous and vicious these debates get, maybe the more clicks they get. But I'm going to try my hardest not to be nasty. And really actually try to engage and understand what you're saying and try to do a good job of finding out where we disagree and why. But so I look forward to this, and thanks for sitting down. I guess for me, I think,
guys, I'm going to pack a bowl, so don't mind me here.
What's important, when we talk about Christianity or secularism or secular ethics and Christian ethics, these can mean so many different things to so many different people. They're easily strawmanned. We can always find the worst examples of each tradition or each perspective or orientation. I hope we'll try to find the best in each other. But so this is what I mean by these things, and then we can proceed. Like when I think of Christianity, because there's so many versions of Christianity. There's cultural Christianity. You can talk about Christians in a sociological sense, a cultural sense, a theological sense. So what I mean by Christian is I believe it has these components. It's a worldview that believes in a powerful or magical. And
I forgot, we're supposed to put this in 15x speed.
I don't mean that disrespectfully, but like not bound by any limits of the physical realm, a deity who also seems to exist alongside or allows for the existence of a Satan or a satanic being that torments the world. And I don't know why this God allows him to do that, but somehow they both are out there. There seems to be the belief that this deity had a son who's also himself, who allowed himself, based on a prophecy, to die. And somehow that death and the blood actually.
So Dan the Man, I don't want to spoil it too much. I'm seeing some of the stuff you're putting in chat, and we can talk about it a little bit more later. Also, I am like I said, I can't be on here super late, so I want to let this actually play a little bit. But what was I gonna say? Fuck, what was I gonna say? I haven't even hit this bowl yet.
That death saves everyone else from eternal torment in hell if they sort of mentally or internally accept him as their savior. And again, I'm saying this as straightforward as I can. I don't mean to characterize this in a comical way. I hope that's not how it's coming across. Seems to be a Christian, you need to believe in heaven and hell, however you define that, but there are definitions that you can work with. A big
Broken Blisters up in here. What's up, bro? Welcome. Good to see you, dude. Why does he have a napkin on his head? I don't know. That's what happens when you get old. Well, I also smoked a bowl before I got on. So that's guys, I've had a day from hell. Let me tell you, I had a long ass day at work today. I was not ready for it. I would love to tell you what happened, and I'm just not. I don't want to relive it by explaining it.
Belief that prayer is an effective mechanism or method by which to change circumstances, change our own personal lives, change the world, and that the Bible is true, either word for word or implied or metaphor. I don't know. There's different. I hear different versions. Like it's unerrant. I don't know. But the Bible is somehow this kind of unlike any other thing ever written. It's God's word, or it's inspired by God's word.
I think I was going to say, Dan. Yeah, I would. I would like to discuss more. I didn't want to highlight the chats too much because I wanted to watch, and there might be other people that also aren't that familiar. But it's so interesting to watch this guy go through this, and it seems like it's like his first time having someone explain it, and it seems like I don't know. The whole process of the way Andrew breaks this down, and the guy seems like he sort of rejects it at the beginning. But again, it's funny. I more agree with the. Well, fuck. What was the topic of the debate? I'm sure they're going to get into it. I think the topic is it's atheist versus Christian, but I think it's which is better for society. Which is best, Christian or secular ethics? Now, I agree more with the secular ethics to. For the most part, I know I'm not signed on with the Christian ethics and stuff, and I think there are issues with some of Andrew's arguments with the Christian ethics and stuff, but maybe we'll get into that another night. I just wanted to we'll talk about whatever comes up here. We'll get into it as long as I got time for it.
So that's what I think I mean by Christian. And then what do I mean by secular ethics or secularism? So I would say ethics based on empathy and compassion with no appeal to anything supernatural. We simply appeal to our own experiences and the experiences of others in this world, in this life. It's a naturalistic worldview that bases its claims on evidence and reason, and those claims are always subject to change based on new evidence and new reason or more improved thinking. We're very skeptical towards claims of the supernatural, so any ethic or any principle or rule that is based on knowledge. So there are some things we don't know, and those things we have to just humbly say we don't know. Time, space, how it all began, why we're here. I don't know.
Tampa Terry said Christ is king. How do you know?
We'll ever know the answers to that, but I do know what it feels like to be hungry, and I can work from there. Obviously, politically, a separation of church and state, that the government should take a neutral stance. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Beautiful, beautiful articulation of Jeffersonian, respects religion. Government shouldn't be in the business of putting it down or criminalizing it or stopping it out, but also government shouldn't be in the business of promoting it or establishing it. Everybody wins in that situation, rather than if some version of Christianity becomes the state religion. That's going to get ugly very quick for Christians as well. And ultimately, only we can save ourselves. So we are flawed animals, but we also have potential for good. And it's that potential for good which we have to rely on. And that's where we're at. So what I would argue, those are my definitions. I don't know how much time I have left. So what I would argue is when we're talking about societies, I'm a sociologist. So how do you measure how a society is faring? And who's to say which is a better society or a worse society?
Cigarette number 2, busted, Buster. We're on cigarette number 2, guys. I'm on it. I am locked in. I'm watching you like a hawk, Andrew Wilson. Yeah, so we can talk about this a little bit because this isn't so much the spoiler that I'm worried about. Dan the Man said, so this is part of my problem with, and I would love to not like, not aggressively like debate. I would love to actually pick Andrew Wilson's brain about this. And I wonder how open he would actually be. Because I'm concerned that, guys, I don't know. I don't know if you've noticed. I'm kind of at the point where I don't have like an identity to cling to or something. And I'm not saying that everybody else is, and that's why they make their decisions and stuff. But, Andrew Wilson is built his whole, online career, persona, whatever, on the fact that he's Christian and stuff. I feel like there's a lot of momentum behind some people's, political and religious beliefs and stuff like that. That makes it a lot harder for them to have certain discussions and be extremely open. I just, I'll read this here. Dan the Man from SoCal said, the summary of Andrew's point is that ethics' absence of God has no justification. An atheist can't appeal to anything beyond their preference. A is wrong because it's wrong because it's wrong. So this is I guess if you were to say an atheist is wrong in saying that a secular ethics would be better or something, that I think is arguable. I would say my thing is there's no separating preference from anyone's worldview in this situation, right? Andrew says an atheist, ethics absence of God, meaning ethics of an atheist has no justification because they can't appeal to a foundation. All they appeal to is their preference. But that is exactly what Andrew Wilson does with Christianity. Andrew Wilson isn't saying we need God, God, the logos, as a foundation for ethics. He's saying God. And then, of course, if someone just tells you, well, my ethics are grounded in by my religion. Which religion do you prefer? Christianity. It's Christian ethics. Well, you're still working with preferences here, right? An atheist can say, I have preferences to whatever, and a Christian can come along. Well, that's just your preference. I use Christianity. You use Christianity because that's what you prefer. You're not appealing to like an actual higher thing besides your preference. You're always stuck in a preference loop with this. You can't like, as far as I've thought about this, the no religion. I mean, it's not like just pure faith or pure spirituality. Every single religious person who says their ethics are grounded in religion or faith, they have a preference towards a certain faith over a different one. It's not like Andrew Wilson can say, "Oh, my ethics are grounded in God, and it's Vishnu, and it's Allah, and whoever else." What are you saying? Andrew argues that appealing to transcendental epistemology framework can violate our own preferences, but a pure reductionist argument can be made that's all preference, but it can be refuted. Wait, what? Hold. The chat moved. Appealing to a transcendental epistemological framework can violate our own preferences, but if you are appealing to a certain transcendental epistemological framework, that means that is your preference. You can say it might violate some preferences you have, but if you are appealing to that one, that means that's the one you prefer. I don't see how you can escape the preference here.
Society. Many societies, for example, are not literate. They're oral societies. Are they better or worse than societies that engage in reading and writing? I could make a strong case that I think reading and writing is a better type of society than one that lacks it, but that's subjective, right? Maybe if I came from an oral culture, I would find that oral cultures are superior to literate cultures. So who can say, and we'll debate this, but on standard measures of what I would call societal well-being, so what I mean by that is, what do I mean by standard measures? Well, I guess most of us agree that life is preferable to death. So life expectancy, infant mortality rates. Most of us don't like to be the victims of violent crime. So violent crime rates, access to healthcare, ratio of patient to nurses in a given hospital, access to doctors. Most of us like to have housing. It's no fun to sleep out in the cold, although I guess it could be for some people. But how do people have access to housing and air conditioning and heat? Do people have access to education? Do people have access to elder care? When someone has a stroke, what kind of care are they able to get or afford or access? These are the kind of things. Are men and women, do they have equal rights in terms of pursuing politics, business, law, owning land, managing their own affairs? Are children protected by laws that keep them from being abused, beaten, or exploited at work? In other words, we can make a list that probably
Is that the same cigarette? I think it is.
I would agree on almost everything. I can think of some things we probably would disagree on, like abortion, or maybe environmental stuff. But I would say the bulk of it having to do with human well-being and alleviating unwanted suffering. When we look at what societies have managed on those fronts, what I would argue is that the most, and these are based on rankings that I don't compile, but other, you can look at corruption indexes. You can look at human development indexes. I mean, there's a lot of.
Yeah, I know that's the reductionist argument, but I don't know. You said it can be refuted. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how it's refuted. That's what I'm saying. As much as I've thought about it, I don't know how it's refuted.
Organizations out there, partisan,
like actually logically consistently refuted or something. I don't know. I barely know the words that are coming out of my mouth. I don't have the vocabulary for this. Lock in.
Nonpartisan that try to chart this information and rank nations. And what you'll find is that most of those nations, not all, most of those nations are post-Christian belief. They tend to be majority cultural Christian, places like Scandinavia, but the vast majority of the population there have dropped the supernatural beliefs that are part and parcel of the Christian worldview. And I don't think that's an accident. And it's not just post-Christian nations, though. It's also post-Buddhist and Shinto societies like Japan or South Korea. In other words, the societies that seem to be faring the best today with the healthiest democracies and whatnot seem to not rely on supernatural Christian beliefs, but rather have moved on to more secular ethics. And those are the.
No, I appreciate you, Dan, and thanks for chatting with us again. I know look, guys, I realize I got a little crazy with the ICE shooting stuff. I got a little aggressive. There's a lot of. Look, back then when that stuff happened, just so you guys know, I was already dealing with like health problems. I already kind of wasn't feeling right. And some of y'all know I've been dealing with some stuff recently. But anyway, I'm getting through it. But yeah, Dan, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being a good sport and everything. Yeah, I don't pretend to know like the answers or whatever. I'm just saying, whatever, as much as I've thought about. I'm an idiot. I will admit that.
The things that spurred them to create universal health care, women's rights, public education, like all the things that even democracy itself is a secular ethic. You won't find democracy articulated by Jesus, by Muhammad, by Moses. There's no articulation of government by the consent of the governed until we get to the Enlightenment philosophers who specifically articulate that principle and put it into practice with secular mechanisms. So, James, how am I doing on time? I don't even know. Okay, so what I would argue is, I want to be clear here to everybody's watching. I'm not saying the societies that are faring the best right now are doing so solely because of secularism. Not at all. In fact, I could argue that secularism and their diminishing of religion came after they improved their societies and addressed all these societal ills. But I can be sure of is they addressed those societal ills. They didn't solve them through prayer or anything magical or appealing to God. They solved them with their own minds and hands and hearts, and they implemented adequate health care, public education, good elder care, all these things through secular means based on secular ethics, more or less. And that's my opening attempt. We'll see where things go. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for that opening. And we're going to kick it over to Andrew for his opening as well. But first, want to mention DebateCon 8 has launched. You can see at the bottom right of your screen, DebateCon 8 is going to be in Dallas, Texas this Saturday, July 25th and Sunday, July 26th. I am putting that link for tickets in the live chat right now. Check out that link as it's going to be amazing. We currently have most of the debates booked. There are a couple that are still being worked out, and they are going to be massive. We're working on making this our best conference yet. Check out DebateCon 8 at that link pinned at the top of the chat and in the description box. With that, we're going to kick it over to Andrew Wilson, who is a live streamer and online commentator known for debating cultural, political, and social issues. Thanks for being with us as well. Andrew, the floor is all yours.
What's going on?
I'm JT, and I made Result
what's going on with the connection and everything tonight? What's going on?
Hunter, the search engine for conservatives. Let me just tell you what it does. First of all,
dear God.
I appreciate that. You guys hear me okay? Perfect. So I don't get to debate with secular humanists as often as I'd like, but it is always amusing for me to do so, especially the particular type I am debating today. Secular humanism is a moronic, self-refuting ideology. Its entire goal is to spare human society from unprovable dogma around higher forms of authority and beings, yet only offers unprovable dogma on higher forms of authority and being. They'll say, look at you, you stupid Christian and your sky daddy, to which I just point out, okay, and you stupid atheist secular humanist and your appeal to my rights daddy. My opponent's entire ideology focuses on the fact that God is unprovable and is untestable and therefore should be rejected. Instead, we should focus on rights, which are unprovable and untestable, and it's ironically just as dogmatic in every conceivable way. Secular humanist dogma includes humans should flourish, that they have rights, that they're all equal, that they deserve a democracy and equal say, and that they should have a representative government. Human rights should be equally given. The list of dogma under Manifesto, Secular Humanism 3, or the Amsterdam Doctrine are overwhelming. It's really just asking you to reject one religion for another religion. It has its own dogma and its own priors, which secular humanists just grant to themselves as being things that ought to be. When reduced, secular humanism is just force. Do what we say or else. No, says a secular humanist. That's not the case at all. Of course it is. You don't want to serve minorities? Force. Don't want to hire women? Force. Don't want to pay taxes? Force. Don't want to follow their codes of conduct? Force.
Yeah, so Andrew Wilson here is making the point that, the secular ethics, they will say everybody has intrinsic value. Everyone has rights. And you Christians are silly because you're appealing to Sky Daddy or whatever. But he's pointing out it's a similar or just as shaky a foundation. Andrew would argue a shakier, less of a foundation for ethics, morals, whatever, to be an atheist and have no religious foundation to point to at all. And then also be pointing your finger at a Christian and say like, aha, you're appealing to some made up thing, Sky Daddy, the Bible, Sky Daddy, but also the secular ideas are just made up stuff too. So it's like, everybody's starting with made up shit.
Don't like their laws? Force. They back up everything with use of force, which aligns with their dogma, and say those Christians over there, you better be careful because they'll use force to back up their dogma. It's actually hilarious. Amazing argument.
And then his second point here is that both, the secular people will complain that, the Christians are going to use force to implement their crazy made up religious dogmatic bullshit. That to inspire laws and the way society should be run. the same thing is true for the secular person. It's all made up stuff, just people's ideas, and it has to be enforced with force, which this guy is gonna have an interesting time learning here.
And I hear often from my opponents in secular humanism is, well, in a secular nation, you can be a Christian. I've actually heard my opponent say this in multiple of his debates. That's nice. And in a Christian country, you can be a secularist. So what have we established here? So what? What's my proof? You, well, sir, you gave it yourself. You said most of this country identifies as being Christian, and yet you're sitting here an avowed atheist. So where's all the persecution at, dude? Nowhere. Nowhere. Now, my opponent will say his view is backed with empirical evidence and that we should use science and empiricism as our basis for rational decisions, which he did, yet can't demonstrate through science or empiricism why we should do that. Because neither thing is designed to make ought claims, which means he's appealing to some other non-material concept. Dignity, rights, vibes, feelings, stuff. Who knows? I don't know what he's appealing to. Who knows? Whatever it is, it's his non-materialist based sky daddy, his God. If I can't taste it, sir, smell it, sir, hear it, feel it, see it, or test it, or have any evidence for it, it isn't even real from your view. Yet, you say that we should have rights anyway, whatever those are, and wherever these invisible things you say are rights, which are real, but can't use any of your methodologies that you just gave us to demonstrate that they're real. The list keeps going. How about this dogma of equality? Boy, that flies in the face of all evidence available to us, doesn't it? Every objective thing we can possibly use shows the exact opposite for this. No, people don't have equal value. No, they don't have equal traits. No, they aren't equal at all in strength or IQ or talent or skills or any of the innumerable amounts of traits that we can name. So on and so forth. And yet somehow the secular humanist gets to this. And this is from the agreed upon secular humanist doctrine, which you can find in the latest manifesto, and you can find it in the Amsterdam doctrine. Human dignity and worth. Every person has intrinsic value, which forms the basis for advocating for equal rights regardless of background, gender, or belief. That's obviously not the case. Observably, it's not the case. And in any form of testing, it isn't the case. So how do we test for intrinsic value again? We don't, right? It's a spiritual concept. You can't. And that's assigning immediately a value to a thing or being just because it exists. How the hell would you test for this? How would you test for the intrinsic value of a human being?
What are you saying, Maddie? Hold on a second. You said I got to disagree a bit. There are lots of ethics that are just inherent in people with a high enough IQ. What are you saying you're disagreeing with though? What point? Which point that I'm assuming is it something Andrew said or the other guy? Ethics inherent in some people with a high enough IQ. Well, but dude, I think so. If I understand what you're saying, it's not just agreed upon things. Trying to understand what exactly you're disagreeing with. I don't know. So you're saying inherent in people with high enough IQs. I mean, I think that's just like you could say it's inherent in some people with high enough IQs, but it's still like, it's still just it's a made up thing. It's not inherent in everyone, right? So it's like their ideas and concepts and stuff. Like the fact that all people should have intrinsic value or whatever, that's just a concept. That's just sort of like a starting philosophy for secular ethics or something. I'm assuming here. I'm no expert on this, but it sounds like what Andrew Wilson is citing secular doctrine. I'm not someone that's well versed on all this shit. I just watch a bunch of people fight about it. And, and there's some ideas that sound good to me and some that don't. So that's just how I go about it. But yeah, so he's saying any of these like ethics, saying you could say that like it's inherent that some people would understand that every human has intrinsic value. If you have a high enough IQ, let's say like above like at least a 3-digit IQ, you'd understand that all people have intrinsic value. But that's sort of just like you're starting. That's sort of like a 10 commandment or something like that, I guess. I don't know. Oh, dude, that's so funny because I just scrolled down. You said all I'm saying is read the 10 commandments, and that's where the vast majority, of walls come from.
You can't. It's all dogma. So they say the same thing. Well, but we can see the effects. And, that's what matters. And that's what he said, right? It's the effects. Which, by the way, this is the entire Christian argument. Yeah, we can see the effects clearly of what Christianity brings. Human dignity, universal morality, outlaws incest, outlaws polygamy, encourages reproduction, outlaws prostitution, frowns on promiscuity, bans abortion as birth control, gives a sense of community, which assists marriages from falling apart, increases happiness, increases satisfaction in life, lowers negative mental health outcomes, distinguishes clearly between sexes, refuses to lie about the interchangeability of sexes, refuses to grant equality except ontologically, but recognizes differences between people. It increases charitability, gives more loving environment.
See, this is the part of the debate where Matt Dillahunty would be calling an Uber. Okay? This is about the time in the debate last time where he ordered his Uber and started texting his friends like, you want to go get a drink in about 20 minutes. Because he started bringing up the trans ideology and gender ideology stuff. Matt, that's one thing that triggered Matt. And I feel like that's not the easiest thing for some of the some of the secular people to defend here.
So that's an evolutionary advantage of an ought for reproduction. It literally does everything that you could ever want for human flourishing. His worldview needs mine to assign these dogmas, but mine doesn't need his. That's the problem with secular humanism. It isn't secular at all. It's a highly religious doctrine and dogma, and it larps as being non-religious when its tenets are completely religious and ultimately completely dogmatic.
Dude, Johnny Z, I answered 10 questions on Facebook once and they said I had a 135 IQ. Pretty stoked. Dude, I've done a few online ones and they weren't through Facebook. This was back before I even had a Facebook. I don't even know how I stumbled on these, but I think I've done at least 2, maybe 3, and they all clustered around 120. It could be bullshit though. That could just be a thing that they kind of throw at a number like that at most people.
And with that, I'll yield my time, and I'd like to just kind of dive right into the debate.
I heard someone say that they give you like a decent score, so that you will be like, ooh, I'm smart, and then send a link to the website to a friend so that they'll do it, and then they click on the website, and it drives more traffic. So I'm probably retarded, actually.
All right, with that, we'll jump into the open dialogue. Following that will be Q&A. The floor is all yours, gentlemen.
Yeah, I have if you don't mind, I'll give you plenty of opportunity to internally critique my position. I think that's totally fair. But if you don't mind, I have a few questions for you. Do you believe that human beings have intrinsic value?
Hold on one second, Andrew.
Okay.
Guys, here we go. This guy's already, and I get it. Andrew Wilson started a little spicy saying, debating secularists it's particularly entertaining, like the one I have today. The secularist worldview is moronic. It's just like, it sounds insulting. Andrew Wilson's gonna not quite backpedal, but he's definitely gonna separate here because this guy took some offense. And anyway, it starts to get weird.
I thought this was going to be a
lock in
good faith debate.
This is good faith.
Cigarette number 3, good faith debate. Cigarette number 3. Guys, I thought I'd need your help for the cigarettes. I'm so locked in tonight. I'm so locked in.
And I don't know you. Forgive me. I haven't ever seen you before. I'm not a follower. I'm not on social media. So forgive me if I thought this was going to be a debate where your opening sentence would call me a moron.
I didn't call you any names.
Dude.
Oh, fuck. Who said it? Hold on. Kenny. Dr. Phil has a womanly voice. Dude, it does. If you close your eyes, you could definitely see him being a trans woman. You could see him dressed up like Kristi Noem's husband for sure. If you just close your eyes.
I didn't call you. My opening statement said.
Opening line was moronic. Are you gonna?
No. Hang on. I'll read it for you verbatim. I didn't call you any names, sir. I would not do that. I said secular humanism is a moronic ideology. Not that you're a moron, sir.
Andrew. Okay, whatever. What's your question? All I'm going to say is I did not find your opening statement at all in good faith. I felt like you spoke for me, so you looked stuff up and said that I believe this.
I used your words from other debates, so you did say those things. That's what I'm sourcing.
Well, Well, I'm talking to you right now.
So I should forget about your debate last week, or
yeah, I didn't.
Okay, I'll forget about everything you've ever said from every time you've advocated for this position to right now. Then, okay.
Andrew, what I'm saying to you is, I entered this conversation. I didn't go back and read all the crazy things or great things you've said. And I thought you and I.
That sounds like a lack of preparation on your part, sir. It has no bearing on anything. I prepare for my debate opponents.
And you also don't smoke enough cigarettes, doctor.
Want to just debate what I said to someone else a year ago?
No, I'm debating your position right now on secular humanism.
I do want to
just outlined it.
I do want to jump in just because
I think this guy. Yeah,
I do want to jump in really quick. To be fair, Dr. Zuckerman, is that I don't think it's unreasonable that he read your past work to engage with it during the debate. He was preparing for the debate. If you want to recant, like if you want to say like I no longer believe that, then he can say, oh, now you've updated it. Okay, it's off the table. But I don't understand why it's.
Yeah, I didn't say anything bad faith.
Good moderator. Good moderator.
I went over talk about what secular humanism is. I'm very familiar with the doctrine.
All right.
I don't know.
All I can say is that when I look at the state of our country right now, the hostility.
This guy, listen, look, for the next like 30 minutes or so, it doesn't look too great for this guy if you're really paying attention. But I have to give him credit. This guy actually came in wanting to have like a good discussion. He, kind of a mistake on the internet debate side of things. You didn't quite prep for Andrew Wilson. I think I don't think this guy is very familiar with Andrew at all. If he was, he would know that that is not Andrew Wilson being mean. That's just Andrew Wilson cutting right to the point. I think had he prepped, he would have not even taken offense to that and just known like, oh, he's just a fierce debater. And that obviously wasn't like meant to be like a complete insult to put me down. He's putting down secularism,
Violence, you're seething with it, and I can see why. I did not get the feeling from the beginning of your statement that you are here to have an exchange of ideas. I got the feeling.
I'm sorry about your emotional state. Can we debate the issue now?
I just want to hear him out. Go ahead.
It's okay. He can.
I would like to debate the issue. I don't know why we're having a meta conversation about the debate. We're here to have a debate. Let's have the debate.
What's your?
Yeah. Do you believe that human beings have intrinsic value?
I'm not going to. I can't. I would say that to me that seems reasonable, but it's not something that I could necessarily prove.
So you're not sure if human beings have intrinsic value?
Okay, so to me, I feel like you're setting me up in a chess game here. What I would say to you is, I would
it's
like
your position, dude. How can I be setting you up? How can I be setting you up by asking you a question about your position?
I've never said that. I believe all humans.
I'm asking you about the position.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
So now here is one of the things it's interesting, and I wish I could have a good, calm conversation with someone super smart like Andrew Wilson, maybe even both of these guys. He says, I feel like you're setting me up in some kind of chess move or something. Andrew Wilson is asking him sort of like a direct thing. Do you believe human beings have intrinsic value? That is, you're kind of working with religious language there itself. I don't know if a secular person, someone that like applies secular ethics, secular humanist, whatever the terminology is for it, I would say, it might not be necessarily a belief. It might be an ideal. Like, it's not a belief in the same sense that it's something you have faith in because just a book said that you should have faith in it, and someone showed you that book when you were a little kid and scared you about hell. So it's like that. That's a completely different thing where you say, you're not attaching some like religion or something to it. It's like a philosophy or something to say like, oh, it's a good ideal. And they'll get into this too about human suffering and stuff like this. But to say that people have intrinsic value, it's maybe not necessarily like a belief, but might be like a core ideal or something. And again, not something like that you could necessarily prove or point to a foundation for.
It depends. Do I think a Nazi who is rounding up Jews and kicking them in the face as they go into a gas chamber has the same human dignity as
I'm not asking about dignity.
You said, do I think all humans
have intrinsic value?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay.
Not if they're causing harm and doing horrible things.
Then we should not ascribe rights to all humans then.
That's correct. I teach in a prison. When people do horrible things, they lose some of their rights based on a social contract that we construct.
Then what makes them rights?
We come together and agree with a lot of them, and they change all the time.
So we made them up.
Absolutely. Well, they didn't come from a magic fairies, but.
So if that's the case, and we just made them up, aren't you just asking us to have faith in them? Isn't it just dogma?
Well, I guess you and I right now, I'm trying not to interrupt you. I think that's because if we keep interrupting each other, things won't go well. Now, if you say to me, Phil, these rules were established by a magical deity, I'm going to say to you, I don't think so. I'm not convinced of that, but you and I can still agree on what would make for a fair conversation. And so me saying, I think you should treat me the way I want to treat you in this debate in terms of not interrupting. That is not a dogma. If you say, oh, the rules of this debate were invented by a magical invisible deity who exists outside of time and space. To me, that's stretching. If that's dogma, then everything, a baseball game is dogma. Who's to say 3 strikes, you're out? Maybe it's 2. It's just dogma, right? That's the nature of living in society. We come together. And just so you know, humans have existed a lot longer before Christianity ever showed up. So clearly people were able to have cities and trade and raise families long before Jesus ever came. So
are we discussing whatever past cultures were, or are we making a comparison between 2 systems? The system is Christianity and society versus secular humanism and its governance of society. I want to make sure that we're very clear of the criticism that we should not follow Christianity because the fact is dogmatic and provable.
Again, it's a straw man here. You simply asked me.
Okay, hang on. That's fair. That's true. I'm taking it from your previous words, not your words right now. That's fair. So I'll just ask you. Is a lack of demonstrable evidence good reason to not believe in God?
I don't even have any desire to get into this conversation. I'm a sociologist. I'm not a theologian or philosopher, and you've already confused me by a double negative. So can you try again? Are we debating the existence of God? I didn't know that was this debate.
No, I'm not. I'm making a comparative analogy for reasons that you might want to believe in secular humanism. So when you say that people ought believe in secular humanism, you are making the claim that people should follow it, right?
I don't care what people believe.
So you're not here to advocate that people should follow secular humanism?
You said ought to believe. That's different. What I'm saying is,
they should follow it but not believe it. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right. So, for example, if someone says to me,
so this is getting all over the place. Part of the issue is that we're arguing which is best for society. And so it's like, it's kind of a toss up how much into the weeds you want to. I mean, we could skip all of this and just start arguing about the visible effects of applying secularism versus Christianity to different societies and argue which outcomes are better and whatever. We're like getting way into the weeds of like what's true and what reasons to believe in secular philosophies, ethics, whatever. But I mean, it's interesting.
I don't think we got to harm others because a magical pumpkin told me that. That's fine. I agree that we ought not harm others. What their beliefs are behind that is less important to me. If you don't believe in harming others because your God told you, great. You and I can agree. I'm not interested in telling people what they ought to believe. I'm interested in how should a society function best.
I think society functions best when you tell people what to believe. That's that's what's in question here. So the thing is that what I'm asking you is, why is it that if secular humanists, do you agree with me, for instance, that if secular humanists took over the role of most of governance of any society, that they're going to reduce their ideology down at least to force for enforcement of said ideology? They're going to enforce laws. They're going to enforce belief structures, cultural taboos like incest, various things like this.
Are you talking about like the Bill of Rights?
The Bill of Rights would be a great example of something which is dogmatic, and you could even perhaps say that it has secularism in it from the First Amendment. So that's fine. I mean, if you want to use that as an example, the idea there is that all of that's going to be enforced by using force of the state, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called. I mean, I don't know how else.
I understand. Look, I understand. I just want to make sure we get the positions clear.
Yeah.
Do you see any problem with that?
Of course, as I guess what was it Churchill said? Democracy is the absolutely worst form of government. It beats all the alternatives. If you and I were getting on a plane to Texas tonight to go to that debate con, and there were 300 of us, and the plane crashed on an island, we would have to figure out how to survive together, and we would make up rules. And if people violated those rules, we'd come. I mean, I agree.
I agree with all of this. There's no. What I'm asking you though is, you don't have an issue just specifically with having a dogmatic structure like a constitution, right? The Bill of Rights, which is pure dogma. You would have to agree it is.
What's your definition of dogma?
So, well, I'm going to go off of your definition here. What you say, which when you're talking about dogma, you're saying it's a thing which reduces past materialism. Is that right?
Oh, if I said that, I don't remember it. Forgive me. I tend to think of dogma in a kind of pejorative sense. Like dogma is something people believe. It could be political, it could be religious, that they believe in a kind of knee-jerk way without, applying critical thinking. And it tends to be in the service of propagandistic services. It could be secular, it could be Marxist, it could be Stalinist. That's my. But I mean,
how would that not fit the criteria of the Bill of Rights, though? Well, it would, right?
If you put a mechanism that says these are subject to change, that to me would be the opposite of anytime you have a mechanism that says we assert these, but we're only asserting them through our own authority, and others are free to change them.
But isn't the axiom that affirms them God? Isn't that dogmatic by its very nature? That it's axiomatically the idea that rights at all are even in existence. The axiom which is appealed to is the God axiom, right? So
I don't see it that way, but I could see how.
Well, I mean, it is, right? Which truths are we holding self-evident? That rights come from where? At least according to our dogma in the United States.
Right. Well, I would argue that in the Declaration of Independence, it's certainly the idea that nature's God is the source, but that's not the source. That's not in the Constitution, which is actually the blueprint of our.
Look, I hang on. Well, the Constitution, pre-Constitution, we had the Articles of Confederation, as you know. The Constitution was a compromise between the various states and the government. The states did not want the government to interfere in the states' religions, and that's why they had that compromise of the First Amendment, right? Just that way, the government wouldn't say everybody has to be a Catholic. Obviously, states which were Protestant did not want to be Catholic. They still had state religions post-Constitution. I mean, for most of our history, we had state.
What do you say? Blister. Considering none of us actually been dead, can't we all just admit we don't actually know what happens after death? I can. I don't know about you. Oh, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. I appreciate you stopping in, dude. What are we? Cigarette number 3. Step it up, Andrew Wilson. What we're 30 minutes into this. That's one cigarette every 10 minutes on average, guys. Okay? He can definitely smoke. We've seen him smoke more than this. Andrew, I need you to step your game up. Lock in, buddy.
Religions. So the idea is that from the federal level, right, there's a secular barrier which is there so that the federal government cannot impose these various actions on the states. It was always up to the states to have their own religions if they wanted them.
But I think that comes from human wisdom, not from a magic.
I understand the view. That makes sense to me from your perspective that is, but they are appealing to an axiom.
Not all of them.
Well, hang on. In the Declaration of Independence.
Are we debating like a U.S. history? We can do a different society.
No, right now I'm just trying to format that there seems to be some kind of dogmatic approach here due to the fact that they're not saying these rights come from our minds or our brains or agreement. The universal concept at the time was that rights came from God. That it was. Now you don't have to believe that or even say it was good.
So that's the point.
Yeah, I just want an agreement that seems dogmatic.
Oh, I guess sure. If you want me to call, if I got you correct, you're saying most of the framers of the U.S. Constitution
follow dogma.
That rights came from God, and thus it's a dogmatic situation.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't use those words, but okay, that's fine.
Well, that's what I'm asking you though. Like, what would make it not dogmatic? It sounds like the whole thing was based around the dogma of the idea of rights. So rights had to be grounded somewhere.
Oh yeah.
So they grounded those rights in God because that's what gave them teeth, right? I think it would be way different. Like we hold these truths to be self-evident that we made all this shit up. I don't think that would like have the same appeal, right? There was a fourth horseman arm.
Well, that's back then. That's the way people tended to look at the world. But
just as I said it, guys, cigarette number 4. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to make a new banner. Well, I only have up to cigarette number 6. I'm going to have to make a new banner. We're already on 4, guys. Look at this. Andrew Wilson, cigarette tracker. We're on 4.
But so that's like saying, when they built Notre Dame, the Cathedral of Notre Dame, they were appealing to God. Of course they were, but what built it was science and engineering and technology. God didn't build Notre Dame. Now, if you go back and say, well, back in the 1300s or whenever they built Notre Dame, they were appealing to God. Of course they were. That was their worldview. But that's not what built Notre Dame. What built Notre Dame?
So that is dogma then.
I guess I feel like you're trying to set me up for something. So
I'm not trying to set you up. I just want to make sure that the view is clear. Look, I'm never trying to set anybody up
on dogma.
Well, because if the idea here, the idea that secular humanism is better for society, my argument to you is that you're also appealing to immaterial concepts as though they should be appealed to in a spiritual way. Ideas like rights, for instance.
Oh yeah. I can't. At the end, then you got me. At the end of the day, like I think unwanted suffering is unpleasant, but I can't prove it in some beyond my experience. So you may be right. Maybe kicking babies in the face for pleasure is fine.
I'm not even really just talking about whether or not in the individualistic action itself we couldn't agree was bad. So I would agree with you. Let me give you an olive branch, right? You and I would probably agree on a few universals that taking things that don't belong to you, that's wrong, right? At least in most cases, that's wrong. Hurting people who haven't done anything wrong, we would probably agree that that's wrong. Like these are things which we can maybe universalize a little bit, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So that seems fair to me. The issue that I have is the appeal. So when the Christian makes the appeal, he's looking for what's grounded. I think it's silly. And I have heard, look, you might say, don't use any of the previous debates. I think that's fair, but you have referred to God as Sky Daddy, right?
Yes.
Okay. But aren't rights just like rights daddy? Like, aren't you making the same appeal? You're just saying there's this translucent, immaterial, nonsensical thing that we just like make an appeal to, and we should all just pretend it's true. Like, aren't you doing the exact same thing?
Okay. So I guess I appreciate that. Let me see if I understand your argument. You're saying that I am critical of people who say, oh, Sky Daddy said it, therefore we must obey it.
Right.
And that's ridiculous because I can't see, hear, smell, touch, or taste the Sky Daddy, and we shouldn't base society or laws on magical invisible being. And yet I'm turning around and saying we ought to, women ought to have equal rights in the workplace.
Right.
And children ought not to be beaten.
He's getting it now.
And then,
and you're appealing to the same thing.
Nothing.
Right. Yeah, nothing.
So thank you. So I got your point. So this is where I would say I would agree with you and disagree with you. To the notion that all claims are, you said it's the exact same thing. I don't see it that way, and I'll tell you why. Okay. So when you say to me, I'll give you some examples because maybe that'll help. Okay.
Sure.
God does not approve of homosexual marriage. And I don't even know if you say that. One could say that. Let's just
I say that.
Okay.
Sure.
A Christian could say God does not approve of homosexual marriage. Now, the proof of that is there. God hasn't told me that. I didn't get an email from God. So I'm relying on your interpretation of some ancient text that I believe was written by people. But the evidence I see is that my gay friends and relatives who are married seem to be doing quite well, just like everybody. They have their ups and downs. But the evidence that I can see, hear, smell, touch, and taste is that gay marriage isn't harming anyone. No one is, it's not causing immediate, you could say it's causing indirect harm because this and that, but we could do that about many things like driving a car. My point is, but if I make an assertion like, we ought not let gay people get married, I can see the pain and suffering.
Bro, hey, Matty P. He said Zuckerman's right eye bag is considerably larger than his left. Dude, chill. He's already losing this debate. Say something mean about Andrew Wilson. We have to level the playing field here.
It causes. They can't visit their loved ones in the hospital. They don't have the same kind of societal. In other words, you're saying like it's all invisible anyway, but I can see the harm.
Well, hang on. Let's untangle two concepts here. The first concept is, remember earlier I said that basically your worldview would reduce to effects. And right now what you're talking about is the reduction to effects. You're saying I can't ground why gay people ought to get married. I can only tell you from the effects of gay people getting married that I can see that it seems okay. And I can see their suffering when they're not right. Okay, got it. But those are effects, right? Yeah. But the problem is when the second you make an appeal and say they have a right to get married, now you're making an appeal to an invisible, translucent, can't taste it, touch it, smell it, see it, exists nowhere, rights daddy, right? So if it, hang on, let me finish the point. Let me finish the point real quick. I want to tie it together so that you understand it, right? At least understand my view. When you make these universal claims, when secular humanists make these universal claims, and that is how you identify as a secular humanist, you've been a secular humanist speaker, in fact, that went and watched some of your lectures. That's nice. I mean, isn't that the case? Am I wrong? Yeah, I identify as a secular humanist. So when a secular humanists make the universal claim of rights, the second you make a universal claim that we all have rights, that is what you base the idea that gays should be able to get married on. They have a right to do so, a human right to do so. You're now making an appeal, to an invisible thing that you completely fucking made up while saying you're not going to listen. Hang on, I'm almost done. While saying at the exact same time, you're not going to listen to my appeal to a thing that you claim I made up. That's the problem. So I understand, I think. So when you say that I think people ought to have the right to be married regardless of their genitalia, and you say I'm appealing to an invisible thing. Yeah. Can you tell me what that thing is I'm appealing to? Well,
cigarette number 5. That's what we're appealing to right now, motherfucker. No way. We're already on cigarette number 5. Andrew Wilson, you damn dog. 37 minutes. Guys, he's stepping up his rate of smoking. I like that. We were first averaging at about 1 cigarette every 10 minutes. At 30 minutes, he was at 3 cigarettes. Now, it hasn't even been 10 more minutes, and he's already on cigarette number 5. He is considerably smoking faster.
You're appealing to you. So just appealing to you.
So that's not an invisible thing.
Unless you say it's a right. So I would just say that when you say it's a right.
Thank you, Truth, trying to help me. I appreciate it. I do. There's been a few nights we reviewed Andrew Wilson stuff, and I just get completely lost and forget which cigarette. And then I turn, next thing I look, I'll read the chat for 1 minute, and I turn back, and he's smoking a new cigarette. No one says anything. I hate that.
Now you're making an appeal to something else. You're saying that there's something else that people have access to.
So if I say everybody has a right to adequate health care.
Yeah.
And you say that I'm grounding that in the same thing as your God. Can you explain? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, here, let me help you out.
Do you think that anything other than what I live and see and experience?
So let me explain better, maybe. Maybe I can reduce it a different way. Do you think that Christianity is made up?
Absolutely. Okay. What do you mean by Christianity? Do you mean like what
all of it? All forms of Christianity are made up.
Made up by
people.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that's fair. So this goes back to the first question, which you said we don't want to have a debate on God, but here we go. So the thing is like if that's the case, and you believe that Christianity is just completely made up, then it sounds like you're saying I shouldn't believe in it because it's made up.
So I'm actually clicking here with something, and again, guys, I'm retarded, so bear with me. But I think the issue with the secularists here is like, okay, you could argue both things are made up, right? The secularists would say, oh yeah, your Bible, the stuff in the Bible, you're telling us to follow that, but it's all made up, so that's silly. And Andrew Wilson or other Christians would respond, well, your secularist stuff is just ideas that you made up. we're both making stuff up. So you're saying to not be a Christian and not implement Christian ethics because it's made up, but your shit's made up too. Well, then the secularist, I don't know if he actually gets around to this, but I think the secularist would argue back, well, number one, he was arguing effects and stuff. And so I think he's making, they're making two, the Christian would appeal to the Christian ethics and point to the Bible and say, we have a foundation for what our ethics should be. The thing is, I think the secularists will never respect that or see eye to eye with that on the same level as they would a secularist worldview, because it doesn't seem like most Christians are appealing to a Christian ethics because they actually think the effects are good and like it actually makes sense, like it's logically consistent and the effects are also good and all this stuff. Most it doesn't, at least coming from me, and I would assume most atheists and secularists would also agree that it doesn't seem like Christians give off that vibe, like they're super self-reflective about being a Christian. I mean, guys, and I know plenty of Christians would argue against this, but it's sort of baked into being guys, I was raised as a Christian in America here, okay? It's baked into being raised as a Christian that when you question it and stuff, that's like sketchy territory. And it's not like great to really like question it with the intent of becoming a non-believer if it doesn't seem logically sound. Most I would, with I can say very fairly, charitably here, I don't think most Christians are self-reflective about Christianity in that drastic of a way, where they would go into thinking and questioning certain things about Christianity with the intent behind it that if they seem like it's logically unsound or something's just way off about it, that they would intend to become a non-believer if it comes to that. Where a secularist is acting in that self-reflective way, and the willingness to, as he already pointed out, where he dogma versus not dogma, by his definition, is if it's built into the belief system that it can be improved upon and changed if logically it seems like it's more consistent or the effects are better or something like that. I don't know. Am I completely stupid?
If that's the case, well, hang on. Hang on. If Christians are saying gays should not get married because God, your rebuttal here is saying, well, I shouldn't listen to that though, because that's made up, right?
No,
well, right. So if that's the case, then I'm just giving the same.
Dude, so Bud and I've said, I still believe the 10 Commandments are wise and healthy for society, as are Psalms and most of the Bible. Dude, there's parts of the Bible that I definitely value. I just, and it is somewhat about how it's taught and stuff. But dude, I never heard, and I think I have discussed this with you guys before when Christianity has come up, or when we've talked about Terrence McKenna, guys. I've, sort of followed his, I don't know, follow ain't the right word. He's been dead since before I ever heard about him, but I don't remember what year I found Terrence McKenna. It was probably like 2010, or might have been 2009, or 2008, actually. I mean, it was soon after I started experimenting with LSD, and I started with that in about 2008. So probably around 2008, 2009, something like that. I discovered Terrence. He's been dead since like 2001 or 2 or something like that. but I discovered a bunch of his videos, him talking about psychedelics, all kinds of stuff. He's an anthropologist and sort of a historian, and he's a brilliant, interesting thinker, captivating speaker, and used to do lectures and all kinds of stuff. A lot of his stuff is still available online. We've done a few reviews of his stuff on here. One time I was on mushrooms when we played some of his stuff. It was wild. But anyway, one of the concepts that he brought up about the Bible, which I've always appreciated since then, which has sort of been a like a turning point with me intellectually, is the story of Thomas the Doubter, right? So I remember, again, I was raised Christian, and I even saw a pastor talking about doubting Thomas not too long ago. This was less than a year ago. I saw another video. I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not wrong. There's still every pastor teaches that Thomas the Doubter is like a fool. He's so silly. This is how they all teach it, guys. Is when pastors discuss doubting Thomas, they go, he was so silly. Oh, he got proved wrong, guys. Doubting Thomas said, I won't believe that Jesus, when the other disciples come to Thomas and they tell him the master was here, Jesus has risen again. He's alive. He is alive. And they're just, Thomas is like, you guys are full of shit. And they're like, no, bro, for real, he was here. And he's like, I won't believe it until I stick my finger inside the wound. This is how Terrence explained it too. But every pastor will tell you that he's such an idiot, and he got basically made a example of, or something like that, for doubting Jesus. How dare he, and how foolish he looked. But dude, this is the point that Terrence McKenna made, which I've never heard a pastor make, and this has always stuck with me as a teaching from the Bible that is never appreciated by mainstream Christianity. Is the only living human being to touch the risen body, the holy, this is, if there's any proof that Jesus is like an expression of God in human form, it would be the fact that you watch the motherfucker die and then rise 3 days later. Jesus being alive 3 days later is like what makes Christianity. You realize that is like what most Christians point to as like, this is what makes it real. He rose again. The only human being to touch the risen body of Jesus was Thomas the Doubter. And this, Terrence teaches this as a point about, when it says in the Bible, blessed are those who can believe and have faith and don't need the evidence and whatever. But if you actually, if you want to go through the world and just kind of believe stuff, then you won't be shown behind the curtain. You won't be able to see behind the curtain. You'll be satisfied with not looking behind the curtain and not experiencing certain things, because you'll just believe it. But if you are a doubting Thomas, if you are somewhat of a skeptic and you're like, you know what, I don't believe that, but it's possible, maybe, I don't know. Just show me the evidence. I want to see, I want to understand. Then you will, inevitably, if you want it enough, you will see evidence, and you will actually have the proof for things people believe in with no real reason at all. I've just never, Terrence was the only person ever that I have heard say that. And I feel like it is one of the most profound teachings that you can pull from the Bible, and it's completely underappreciated by mainstream Christianity. In fact, you could say it's the story's used to preach the opposite.
Criticism back. Well, I'm not going to listen to you when you say they have rights, because that shit's just made up by your own admission.
Right, but that's the nature of the beast. We're on a planet. Mm-hmm. You are existing. I'm existing. People are existing.
Thank you, Promo.
If you want to drive, Andrew, and you don't want to get in a car accident, we have rules for the road. Are those rules for the road? Those were invented by people. I don't appeal to, I don't say, and they came from a magic deity, but I assume you follow the rules of the road.
Ah, we got an ad. Scrub Daddy, please give us a Scrub Daddy. No, it's 2 minutes. It's not going to be. Guys, I don't know why I'm getting this. I never get these on the desktop version of YouTube. I normally get these on my phone. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I accidentally watched these for a minute, but I've never clicked on one. I don't have time to be playing games on my fucking phone. I have no idea why I'm in this demographic for getting these ads. The algorithms are completely retarded.
I don't even know what that means. You mean
give me a Scrub Daddy ad, please?
Do I follow things that people use force against me if I don't follow? Yeah, probably.
Cars didn't exist for a long time, and then they existed. And then we decided if we don't want to get hurt, we have to create rules of the road, like speed limits, lanes, traffic signals.
I agree.
AZ, what's up, bro? Welcome.
That we made up.
Yeah, we made it all up.
So you're saying that my advocacy for human-made traffic laws is the exact same thing as someone who says those laws were created by a magical deity.
Well, I guess, yeah, because all that's happening, that's happening here is like I'm conceding the point, but it hurts you, not me. So here's what I mean by that.
What am I? You saying?
Hang on. I'll explain. Yeah, you are. You're appealing to. You're saying Christians are appealing to I made it up, but you're also appealing to I made it up.
No, you said. Maybe I misunderstood you, but I tried to give your words back to you, and you said I did a good job. You said that appealing to God in deciding civil matters, like who gets married, is the exact same thing. Those were your words, not mine. As me appealing to, I think rights. To be able to do this.
No, rights. Specifically rights.
Okay.
It is the same thing. You're making an appeal to something which is absent to sense data, cannot be measured by any of the metrics, but you said we should metric things by.
It can be measured. We can see what happens.
No, those are effects, not the thing.
Okay, I don't really understand.
Well, you do. I think you do understand, and I'll break it down even further.
I think what you're trying to say is that we both believe in nonsense, so how do we know which is better?
What I'm saying is that from your view, everything from the materialist view reduces to nonsense. So it works like this. Rights are, from my view, are useless.
I don't think
hang on. Rights from my view. Hang on. Do you want the argument or not?
Well, I don't like you putting words in my mouth that I don't.
I'm talking about my words. My words.
You said according to your view, you think everything.
No, I said I think according to the materialist view, all things reduce to nonsense. And so here's why I think all things reduce to nonsense in the materialist view. Because by your own admission, we just make all this shit up. That's the case. You don't really have rights. What you have instead is broad appeals to force. What we're really arguing about, reduction of all of this, is that you believe that human beings have a specific thing which should be granted to them, right? In this case, rights, something like this, and you're willing to utilize. You're willing to utilize. I know, but you're willing to utilize force in order to ratify or protect these rights.
I don't know. I've never said that in any debate. I don't recall ever saying we ought.
Then what? Then okay. Well, let's start.
I don't know what you're quoting.
Here we're coming around to dog walk number 2, guys. You hate to see it. Andrew Wilson walked him right into the little harness and attached the leash to it, and we're about to go on walk number 2, guys. Lock in, okay? So he is now, unfortunately, questioning the what Andrew is saying, that he's going to enforce the secular, made up rights daddies with. He's going to enforce it with force. And he's questioning that now, and we're about to explain to him why that is true, and we're wasting our time going through it.
Used force.
Well, here I'll demonstrate it for you. Just with a couple basic questions. So the
ultimate force is God saying, if you don't do this, I will smite you.
I totally agree. Now here's the question. Do you agree with me then that rights are just social constructions?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then they're changeable.
Absolutely.
Okay, they're completely changeable. When a right, isn't the case here is that a right is only as useful as it is enforced. Otherwise, why is it useful? How's it useful to have a right if there's no enforcement? Like, for instance, if you have a right to not be assaulted, but anybody could assault you whenever they wanted to, it's never enforced. Do you really have a right to not be assaulted at that point?
I don't know. This is weird. It's too hypothetical.
Weird. No, it's not hypothetical.
You're saying
it's not too hypothetical. It's a very basic question.
Yeah. So rights are. This is what Andrew's getting at here, and we're gonna take the long way there in a second. Rights are only something that, like we were talking about this the other night on the stream. Rights are only exist in the context of having some enforcement, like either a government or other people or whatever, or superior power, some kind of superior force. That's what's implied by saying someone has a right. That means there's a superior force that's going to make sure that the person can do whatever thing it is that we are agreeing that they have a right to do. Right? So if like he just said, if you have the right to not be assaulted, Like if you, like we watch the First Amendment auditors all the time, you have the right to record on the sidewalk. Okay. So if someone comes up and just wants to stop you from recording, they can ask you and you can say yes or no. And when you say no, I'm going to keep recording, and then they punch you, well, you can call the police and have them arrested and make sure that they don't do it again, so you can remain on the sidewalk not getting punched again. So the fact that you got punched once isn't proof that the rights don't exist. They need to be enforced. But it's only if there are no police or a militia of just people or some kind of superior power that can enforce it, then the rights don't exist, right? You can say you have the right to record on the sidewalk and tell you that, but then the police never show up when someone comes to punch you in the face, then you don't, in essence, you don't have the right. A right implies that there's a superior power to enforce it.
So you're saying, I think everybody has a right to not be shot in the face, but if I do get shot in the face, then I don't have that right.
No, what I'm saying is that if it's the case that you had a right to, I don't know, vote, okay, but then when you got to the polls, you weren't allowed to vote, right? Okay. Do you think that would really be a right? Like absent the ability to operate, to do the thing, to appeal to some authority, to enforce the right, don't you think the right is basically useless? So
if you're saying like, hey, everybody has a right to go to the dentist, but all the dentist shops are closed, it's kind of null and void.
No, it's more like, let's say you have a right to go to a dentist, but dentists all want to refuse you that right.
Yeah.
And there's no way for you to enforce it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what we did to black people.
Yeah. Right. So they didn't have rights, right?
So they didn't have the same rights as white people.
So that right was only as good as it was enforced.
Of course.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Got it. So we've reduced this down to the idea that you have is force.
Well, yeah, but force can be nonviolent.
How?
You can sit in a road and not let people, like the nonviolent.
That's not force.
Sure it is.
How's that force?
It shut down the bus. The buses system couldn't work because people boycotted them.
That wasn't force.
Okay, so wait, your point is, to me, so you're saying Christianity doesn't use force to enforce its views?
No, I'm saying it does.
Okay, and what's your point?
My point is that the reduction on your view is force. What we're really arguing about is the idea of who should be assigned the adequate force to enforce the things that they believe.
It's called a state.
So then if that's the case, why is it that Christians shouldn't be rushing to get the monopoly on force? Why not?
I don't understand your question.
Well, if it's the case that we're really just arguing over who should have the sort of power,
right,
because they're going to have the monopoly on force,
right,
can you tell me why Christians shouldn't have that?
Sure. You want to know why I think Christians shouldn't run the government?
No. That's not my question. My question specifically is just this. If all rights are just reduced to force, which you've now conceded they are.
I'm not sure I understand that.
You just conceded that it's true, but we can go through it again.
I have tried my hardest to sort of listen to your meandering and sort of like, yes, I agree.
That's not meandering. It's the opposite of meandering. It's precision questions designed to explore the view.
When do I get to ask you some questions?
Well, we're not even halfway through the debate, but if we could,
because so far I feel like you're driving this.
Well, if we can just finish this. It's funny because every time. Let me ask you this: you've asked me over a dozen questions, and I've answered each one precisely. Yes, we do believe that. No, we don't believe that. Yes, we do believe that. No, we don't believe that. I've been very precise. So the thing is like, yeah, what I just want you to if rights are not force, they don't reduce to force. How are they even useful? If a right's not enforced, how is it even useful?
Yeah, I'd have to think about that.
You don't know?
When I think of examples, I think, for example, if I see that, if someone says to me, hey, we ought not drive drunk, and everybody has a right to drive safely without threat of being killed, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. It will decrease suffering and increase well-being.
Cigarette number 6. Guys, I almost missed it. We're on cigarette number 6. Hold on. Oh my God, I'm going to have to make a new banner. You got to be kidding me. I got to make new banners. I got to make a new banner.
Now, if people don't abide by that and they keep drinking drunk, then yeah, I think they should not be allowed to drive.
That would be correct. The correct way to look at that would be if cops just didn't ever pull over drunk drivers. And if they did, they just always let them go. Even though people had a right to the roadways to drive without there being drunk drivers, you would say that's a pretty useless right at that point, right?
So what I'm saying is, in my understanding of what this, and I don't really know where this is all going, but I think you're trying.
I don't know why you try to anticipate outcomes. I don't know why you do that. I don't ever do that. I'm just trying to be honest. I just try to be honest. I just want to know how a right can be useful without force. How?
It's an ideal.
Well, that's a principle, not a right.
Then my answer is I don't know.
Well, isn't a right is some form of like entitlement, right?
I guess.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be like an entitlement absent a duty? Wouldn't like when you say an adherence to a principle can be useful, sure. But like, for instance, let's say the First Amendment. If it was the case that, and it is the case that you have a right to be safe with your effects or things like this, or let's say the Fifth Amendment or the Fourth Amendment or any of these. If it was the case that a cop could just take you into an interrogation room and just beat the tar out of you whenever he felt like it, but you had a right at the same time that a cop could not do that,
right?
Would you say that that was a useful right, or would you say that was a pretty not useful right?
I would say it's a useful right that's being violated.
Well, okay, but if it's always being violated, meaning it's never being enforced, how would that even be useful to you? It's only useful if it's enforced, right?
It has to be upheld, and if it's not,
yeah, it has to be enforced.
Okay.
So when we're talking about rights, we're really just always creating a reduction to force. And if we're talking about force, then what you're really asking me to do is give up force to you for your view.
Okay, I don't. Can you give me an example in the real world of what you're talking about?
Sure. So here would be a good example of this. Once upon a time, black kids couldn't go to white kids' schools, right?
Right.
If it was the case that the law said that they could, but the National Guard hadn't shown up when it was the case that the governor said that they couldn't, would that right have done the black people any good?
In that particular moment, the right had to be enforced.
All rights have to be, every right that I can think of and have always thought of has to operate that way. Okay. So now if they have a right to go to the school and you're barring them access to the school, they now can appeal for redress to force. And every single right operates that way. So if that's the case, and you're making the claim that there's universal rights based on secular humanism, which you are, then that would mean that you're saying that secular humanists need to have the monopoly on force. You would have to, because you're making the appeal that these rights and dogmas which come from your worldview are universalized. And so therefore force should be universalized to enforce those rights. And that's what you're actually asking Christians to do, is to yield rights to you, or to yield force to you. And I'm asking why we should do that. Why the hell should we do that?
So I'm a little bit confused when you mean like Phil Zuckerman should be the emperor and I should decide everything. Is that what you mean by I think?
I'm saying that Christians are a broad coalition or collection. Once upon a time, they were pan-Protestant. There was various collections of them that way. Now, hang on.
I'm just asking a question.
I'm answering it.
Who was the you?
It would be the collective of secular humanists, which you're appealing to their dogma or your dogma with them.
Oh, so if I understand you correctly, no, I would not say that only self-identified secular humanists are in charge and you all have to do what we say. That seems bizarre to me.
Then how do you universalize the rights that you want universalized?
The best I can look at is representative democracy. I've lived in many countries. I've seen which ones seem to function better than others. And the ones that seem to function the best are the ones that appeal to human-created rules and human mechanisms that do not appeal to anything supernatural. Now, I could be wrong about that.
Your appealing rights is an appeal to something supernatural by your own agreement. Multiple times now. You're making the same exact appeal to something which is ethereal, does not exist, is immaterial, can't be accounted for, cannot be measured by your own definition. None of these things.
Well, I don't agree with that. What I say.
Well, yeah. Let's take traffic laws.
I haven't appealed to anything supernatural in traffic laws.
No, but you appeal to something supernatural with rights.
Fine, but can you let me speak for myself, or do you want to put the words in my mouth?
These are your words you told me tonight.
I am saying to you that the best functioning societies right now are just people who have come together collectively and decided what is the best way we want to live.
Yeah.
And they appeal to experience, they appeal to reason, they appeal to all kinds of things.
They appeal to human rights.
Not necessarily.
Which ones don't? Which ones don't?
Can you let me just speak? Can you just let me speak?
Okay, but you're not going to get away from the question. Like, which ones don't appeal to human rights? Every country you're going to cite appeals to human rights.
I want to give Dr. Zuckerman a chance to finish.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, when I read the Constitution of Denmark, which I haven't memorized, so I'd have to go back and Google it, there are laws in the Danish law books that articulate how the society is going to function. That does not appeal to anything supernatural. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does say like our Lord Jesus's blood dictates that we all have to, everybody's, goes to school on these times. But the laws that govern modern Denmark were created by people for each other, based on collective sentiment and democratic principles and processes, with no appeal to something supernatural.
Human rights in the Kingdom of Denmark are protected by the state's constitution. Human rights are appealed to multiple times all throughout the state's constitution. That's an appeal to something supernatural, sir. There is no such thing as a right by your own admission. It's just made up shit. It's ethereal nonsense. Would you like to read the Constitution? I can pull it up. Name a single country you would appeal to that's not looking for these supernatural rights as being the grounded foundation. For instance, the democracies that you want so badly, you have a right to vote. You have a right to vote. That's what makes a democracy work.
And you're saying that I think it's something supernatural that grants.
I'm saying it has to be definitionally. How do we measure it? Where does it exist materially? Where you're just making an appeal to it?
What are you talking about?
Do what? We do what? We make appeals to things that don't exist.
We live our lives collectively and agree on what kind of rules we want to follow. I don't understand why that's so mysterious to you. Do you really think
that part's not?
I mean,
okay,
I feel like
you make an appeal. You have a right to do X.
Andrew, are you telling me?
Right?
You're telling me that people don't get together collectively and decide how they want to live except by appealing to the supernatural?
I'm saying no, of course not.
So
I'll make it very concise for you. I'm saying that if it's the case that you have reduced, and you did, and you can go back this up if you want, when you come to an agreement that rights are a thing which by your own metrics cannot be measured by science. Hang on. No, we can't.
Let's look at societies. Let's just
look at societies. They all have rights.
And what are supernatural? What's supernatural there?
I'm trying to explain it to you. Because tell me, by any metric of measurement, how do I measure right absent my faith in the right?
You can look and see who's hungry.
No, those are effects,
Fine.
not the thing itself.
Fine.
How do I measure?
How do you measure anything? How do you measure God?
That's my whole point, though. You say I can't measure God,
but I can measure hunger.
You can't measure right.
But I can measure hunger.
But you can't measure right.
I can say people have a right to.
You're appealing to a supernatural thing in your own dogmas.
Hunger?
Not hunger. Hunger would be a material condition.
Try this, Andrew. Try this. Try to say my point as best you can, and then show me why I'm wrong. But first,
I'll steel man it for you. Sure. So the steel man to your position is this, Andrew. As a sociologist, I've been all over the place, right? I've been to many countries. The countries that I generally see, which have the best effects for the people, are countries that embrace some sort of secular division between religion and not religion. Okay, those are the countries that you like the best because you see the best effects. You further go on to qualify this by saying, Andrew, I believe that human beings can get together, come up with formulas and laws and conditionals for how they can live, absent any appeal to anything which is supernatural.
Love it.
Am I wrong?
I appreciate that.
Now, why don't you do the same thing from my position?
Oh, okay, but then you got to tell me though what was wrong about what you just said.
Nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with what I said.
Okay, well then we're in agreement. Okay, so
okay, great. So what was
position is this? I think your position is, Phil, at the end of the day, if you say that people have a right to vote, or people have a right to not be hungry, or people have health care, or a right to public education, you're making some kind of universalistic claim about rights.
We're on cigarette number 7, guys. Holy crap, Andrew, chill. Chill, dog. He's thinking. He's actually thinking. And he's stressing a little bit. And we've stepped it up here. We're on what? Cigarette number 7. And yeah, not even 60 minutes yet. Well, actually, he's slowed down a little bit. So in the 30-minute to 45-minute mark, he smoked about 5. Fuck, dude.
But at the end of the day, those rights don't live on a star. They don't live in outer space. Like, where are these rights? Who grants these rights? What are these rights? There's no there. So these assertions are just axiomatic statements that have no empirical proof. And at the end of the day, they just resort to some kind of force, because if you say everybody has a right to go to school, and if someone denies that right, then we call the police to let them go to school. So your point seems to be that at the end of the day, secular humanism is based on nothing. It's groundless. It's just hot air. Am I right?
I think you got that to be perfectly charitable. I think you got like 80% of the position correct. The one deviation that we have is what the core of my argument here is, the core of the critique, which is just that simply. We can, by your own admission now, and even now that we've steelmanned both our positions, we should be able to come to agreement that rights are basically only as good as they are enforced. They can change easily. They can change whether there's a dictator, a democracy, whatever. Rights are always changeable. They're always malleable. They're not written in stone, nothing like that. They're only as good as our faith in them is good, just like currency, right? That's it. So if that's the case, we're looking at force. And so if there's a universal claim that people ought to have these rights, which is what you're making a universal claim, all people deserve to have these rights, then what you're asking for is a monopoly on force, because those rights can't be useful in any way, shape, form, or capacity absent force. So what you're asking Christians for is to give you the monopoly on force. That's the part that you're missing, I think.
Okay.
Scrub Daddy, please. Oh, sleep mask. Give me a break. Guys, I rip this bong. I sleep like a baby. Give me a break, sleep mask.
So why should Christians give you the monopoly on force? If you make the universal claim that these rights, that everybody ought to have these rights, which you're making that claim, and you agree that rights reduce to force, if Christians do not agree with you on what these rights are, why should they give you access to force?
You mean, so like, if Christians don't believe in gay marriage, why should they have to?
Yeah. Why should they give you access to the force to enforce that gays ought get married? When you make this universal claim, gay men ought to be married, I understand the claim. That makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that you believe it. It makes sense that the reason you believe it is due to lines. Meaning, you're going to use the power of the state to enforce rights. That's what you're going to do. And you're going to enforce those rights even if I don't like them on me. And one of your major criticisms from previous lectures was that you were concerned that Christians were going to do that to you. But you're asking for the exact same thing the second you make a universal claim we all have rights.
So I'm not sure I understand that. So let me see if I can unpack this.
Sure.
What's the alternative?
To what?
That scenario you just described. You're like, well, Phil,
Christians monopolize the force instead, and we impose our will instead of letting you impose yours.
And so you're saying at some point, no matter what, some group or worldview is going to be holding the force. And so,
no, I'm saying in this case, you're actually advocating to hold the monopoly of force, because if you make a universal claim for rights and all rights must be enforced, then you're actually advocating that you have the monopoly on force. It's just an XY argument. If X, then Y. If rights reduce to force, right? X is force, then rights lead to force. Force is a necessary component for rights. So you're actually asking me for force, for universal rights, and rights I don't agree with. Why should I give them to you? That's what I'm asking.
The alternative?
That Christians instead we take the power of force instead to make the imposition of whatever the fuck it is that we want, that we make up. Whatever we make up, we're going to use the power of force instead of you. Why should we not do that?
So you're saying these are our only options here. Like, I'm either going to force you to follow my rights, or you're going to force me to follow your.
In this case, yes, if you're making the universal claim that all people ought have X rights, then you are making the claim that you are trying to move into positions of power to give those people those rights. Otherwise, how's it an ought claim? Or at least you're advocating that these rights or this force be used to give X amount of people these rights. Why should I give it to you? I don't want to give it to you. I want to keep it for myself, for my people, right? I want them to have the monopoly on force to impose our will on whatever shit we make up instead of whatever shit you make up.
So, Andrew, are you saying to me that if you and me sat at a table over beers, I'm not a smoker, and we were somehow given the chance to shape the laws of the land, you don't think we could come up with some just basic agreements?
Maybe.
What do you think?
Oh, probably all kinds of agreements.
Right,
I think
probably agree that, like, would we agree that, like, no one ought to, violently harm someone else for no reason?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so what you and I just did was agree on something. Have I used my secular humanist cudgel to force you into that, or have you used your Christian saber to force me into that? Or
yeah. But what about other issues, though? You're not. It's nice. It's not. Hang on. It's nice for you. It's nice for you. Hang on. It's nice for you to contextually say, I can give you something which is a universal that most people tend to prefer. Like, Andrew, do you think that most people should be able to breathe oxygen?
No, that wasn't my point. My point was that if you and I can sort of agree on rules, or just rules of this debate, like you and I can agree that we ought to let each other finish our sentences.
Sure.
Is that who's used the club? Have I used the club on you, or have you used the club on me? Or
I'm going to agree to this point because, again, this is not actually contending with the position. If it's the case that you and I come to an agreement here that I'm not going to interrupt you, or you're not going to interrupt me in this debate, neither of us are saying that you have a right to not be interrupted, or I have a right to not be interrupted. If I interrupt you, men with fucking hats and guns are going to come kick in my doors and drag my ass to jail because I have violated your rights. In the UK right now, for instance, if you call somebody the F slur via text message, you can actually go to jail for doing that. It's a violation of their rights. So the thing is that when you're talking about rights, as long as you say we can agree to things that we're not going to enforce.
I pursue this the way that you have pursued me. Like, I want to ask you.
Yes, absolutely.
So you and I can agree on the rules of this debate. And if we had a third person, let's say it was a round table, the three of us could agree on rules of this debate. I don't see anybody using force there. I think you're agreeing and I'm agreeing because we both want the same thing. We both want to be heard and understood, and we know it'll function better that way. You seem to be suggesting, so if I say you have a right to not be interrupted, now we're getting into semantics. Do I think you have some mystical cosmic right? No, I'm saying you and I are agreeing on what are the terms of this debate. And that's not, to me, I don't need to appeal to anything other than each other. We appeal to each other. And
Bro, I got kicked off of Facebook. What the hell is happening? I mean, I don't really care, but there's just some mad boomers over there missing my stream.
But we don't appeal to each other for rights. We appeal to an authority which has a body of force.
Juggalette Jen, what's up? What's up? Welcome, welcome. How's it going? Is that number 8 or wait, did he just light another one? No.
In order to do what's called rights enforcement.
I'm not going to call the police on you if you interrupt me.
Well, wait, but think about what you just said.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
You would call, there's an authoritative body which you can call to throw me in jail.
No, I never said anything.
No, hang on. The authoritative body could throw me in jail if I violated one of your rights.
He did just light another one. No, it wasn't one of my butthole pictures. It was the stream. The stream got knocked off of Facebook. I don't know what happened. He did light another one, didn't he, guys? Guys, did I miss it? It looks like, hold on, right here. You can see it where he lit it. Oh, damn it. Where was it? He lit a fresh one. Oh my God, right there.
Us could agree on rules of this debate.
Oh my God, I missed one. Maddie, thank you, dude. Where were we at?
If I violated one of your rights.
No, I've never said
yes,
that.
They could though, right?
Well, I don't agree to that.
Yeah, I mean, you agree to that the second you call the police and say this guy's violating my rights, right?
No, there's no police here. It's you and me and James.
Yeah.
There's no threat of violence.
Yeah, but there's no rights here.
Okay, but I'm saying you have a right not to be interrupted. Is that?
Yeah, but what? Okay, but I want to show you the weakness here with this line of argumentation. Okay, sure. Me, you, and James are all in a room, and we can agree on all sorts of things. And I go, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm just going to beat this guy. I'm just going to beat this guy to death with a hammer. What's the problem?
That's a different. You're taking into a different hypothetical. You're not allowing.
Yeah, but what's wrong? What's wrong with that? At that point, am I violating your rights? You know, like you see my point?
No, I don't see your point. I think
okay. Well, go ahead with your line of argumentation.
My point is that humans can agree to certain principles that they want to live by, and I don't think that's controversial. I don't think that's weird. And you want to keep saying, aha, you secular humanists, you want to have the monopoly on force and make us submit to your version of the world. And I'm saying, no, I think we could all agree together.
Jugglehead Jen said Bobby Nick will outsmoke him. Bro, I don't know. Cigarette number 8. Yeah, maybe. You know what? I think you're right. Bobby Nick just pretty much chain smokes, doesn't he? I mean, Andrew Wilson, this is 8 cigarettes in 60 minutes. Well, 67 minutes, basically. So that's more than one every 10 minutes.
On how we want to live. And
really? Then why do you work in a prison? Is it full of prisoners?
Do you want to understand my point, or do you want to pick holes in it?
Well, no, I'm pointing out some of the obvious contention here. You work in a prison full of prisoners who obviously are not living by whatever these rules are that you think we should be agreeing to.
Right, and we all agreed that they ought to be in prison, and many of them agreed
right.
too.
With force?
Right, but so in my neighbor, so you're saying that humans can't, but that itself is a part of the human agreement. We agreed that if people don't follow these rules, these are the consequences.
Now you're getting it right.
There could be other consequences.
Perfect. So now that we've agreed that if there's a violation of rights, we're going to use force to throw people in prison and then use force to keep them there. Why should I give the power of those things, that force, to you people instead of giving it to Christians? That's the point.
So you don't understand how democracy works?
I'm saying, why even value that? Who cares?
Well, then
ultimately, why even value? The thing is like, if it's the case that we're just making shit up,
right?
Which by your admission we are, we're just making shit up, right? And we're just making up the rules that we all want to kind of live by because for whatever reason, well, we're willing to use force to enforce those rules, things like rights and concepts like rights and things like this. Then why should I cede all power of force to you so that you can enforce what you think the right should be instead of what we think they should be? That's the question.
You shouldn't.
Exactly. And that's why when we're talking about the incoherence of the worldview of secular humanism, you just demonstrated it beautifully.
How is yours?
I'm going to show you. Inside of my worldview, there is no problem whatsoever with what you consider rights violations because we don't believe in rights in the same way that you do. We believe in what's called human dignity.
Who cares?
We're the only ones who can even create a grounding for the idea of human dignity.
Then why did you allow for slavery?
Well, I'm sorry. Am I violating somebody's rights?
So wait, how can you say that a slave has dignity if you own them as property?
Wait a second. Who does the Christian appeal to for who makes the laws of the land and what dignity is? Do they appeal to you or do they appeal to God?
Well, they claim to appeal to God, but
they claim to appeal to God. So the thing is like, from your view here, this is an equally incoherent critique, and I'll explain why. What's wrong with me owning somebody? What?
It's not treating a person the way you would want to be treated.
So?
It causes suffering.
So?
Well, so anything.
Yeah, exactly my point. What actually gives that person a right to not be a slave? What?
I know what it's like to suffer.
What can you hang on? What I'm saying is, what can you point to?
I get to interrupt you every time.
I just want to make sure this question out. I just want to make sure. All right, fine.
I get to interrupt you every time.
Go ahead. I'm going to circle back.
Why does it matter? You're saying that why does it matter if someone's enslaved?
Yeah.
You don't know why?
No.
You honestly don't know why.
That's an appeal to credulity. Not helping your position.
You don't know. You would prefer to be. You don't think there's any difference between enslaved or not being enslaved.
I didn't say there's no difference. I'm asking you.
One is preferable to the other.
It doesn't matter what's preferable.
I'm asking you.
Yeah. So from my accounting,
do you think being enslaved is preferable?
Yeah. So who do I make my appeals to for what's moral?
I'm asking. I don't care.
Okay. Well, here I'll just answer it in the most direct way possible. I derive all morality from God.
So you say.
So if God says if God says slavery in this instance is moral, if I derive morality from God, then sure, it's moral. Then you say slavery is immoral.
It causes suffering.
Hang on. You say slavery is suffering. Okay, hang on. Let me get the point out. You say slavery is immoral because you fucking said so.
No, because it causes suffering.
Yeah, but suffering's wrong because you said so.
Listen to my words.
Well, suffering's wrong because you said so.
You don't think suffering's bad?
It has no bearing on what I think. You think it's wrong because you said so.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, but I asked you first. Isn't it just wrong?
Yeah, I think suffering is bad. Not because
you said so.
Not because I said so.
Then why?
Because it hurts.
So that, but you see how this endless reduction will just end it because I prefer it not to be.
Sure.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then why can't I make the same appeal?
You can.
Then you see the whole then.
So why don't you put your cigarette out in your eye right now? So who cares?
Yeah. Well,
good question. Very good question. Why don't you put your cigarette out in your eye, Andrew? That would get some good views.
From your view.
No, I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'll critique both views.
Do you want to be hurt?
I'm going to critique both views. So for me, I believe that human beings have a sense of dignity, and no, I don't want to be hurt. No.
Why not?
Because it hurts.
So what's wrong with hurt?
Yeah. So that's not a moral claim. That's a preferential claim.
No, it's a physical reality.
But you're trying to make a normative. You're trying to make a normative claim, though.
Oh yeah, I think suffering is not.
No, wrong. Listen, if I stick this in my eye, it's going to hurt. Right?
So who cares? According to
it's going to hurt.
So who cares?
No.
Is that a normative claim?
It's not a normative claim.
Is hurt pleasant?
No, of course not.
So I would like to avoid suffering.
Unless you're at the gym.
If it's warranted suffering, great. But
then it's not a normative claim. Yeah. So what are you talking? What you're doing is you're conflating a normative claim, which is a moral claim, with a preferential claim. Yes, I prefer not to have my eyeballs burn out with a cigarette. But can you tell me why it's immoral if I did burn my eyes out with a cigarette? No, exactly.
If you choose to do that,
only I can account for that. Not
I
you.
agree.
That's the point.
I agree.
But this is the whole flaw with secular humanism.
But you're saying, so because of that, if another person is being branded with a hot iron against their will, you're like, well, I can't condemn that because I don't know, I can't derive an ought from it is, and even though I see their flesh burning.
Yeah, what does a Christian do when you see someone getting branded against their will with a hot cattle iron? Do you go look in the Bible and try to see what it says if you're allowed to brand somebody with a hot piece of metal? Or do you go, hey, you know what? I imagine that probably really hurts, and we probably shouldn't let that happen to somebody against their will for like no good reason. That's not cool.
In Syria, and they're screaming in agonizing pain. I can't make a moral claim.
Andrew Wilson checks his Bible. He goes and checks, what does the Lord say? What does Leviticus say about pressing hot metal against a human's flesh to leave a scar?
I mean,
you can't make one, no, because you said we make it all up. You just said you made it all up.
We do.
Yeah, so we make it all up.
That's wrong.
So if I kick back and go, I love the smell of burning flesh in the morning, there's nothing actually immoral or wrong about that.
You know who loves the smell of burning flesh? It's a funny thing that you would bring that. So your move is to say, because humans are just making shit up, there must be some magical being that saves us? Is that?
No, it's worse. It's actually, the critique is, I'm willing to grant that I appeal to a magical being. As long as you're willing to grant that you appeal to magical rights, and then I want to know why I should give you the force to enforce those rights.
How is it magical? I'm
because you appear to
say, look, bro, just say yes. The fucking atheists' rights, their magical rights. Okay, let's get past it. It makes more sense than the Christian stuff. Let's start with that, or it has better effects. We're supposed to be, guys, you know what? I mean, we're not going to make it through all this. I got to get out of here soon. But we're supposed to be talking about what's best for society. We're so lost. This feels like, what is the debate? What was the one? Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, when they were debating, like, what was that? They were debating some shit like what is real, or they got totally stuck. They were supposed to be debating one thing and they got totally stuck on something. I feel like we're reliving this.
To think that people deserve to have this immaterial shit given to them, or else you wouldn't ask you for rights.
Smell the burning flesh. That's not invisible.
I'm not talking about burning flesh. Why does a person have a right to not be a slave?
I think so.
And are you willing to use force to make sure that people are not slaves?
I'm not good with force, but I would do everything I could.
Not you, but at least
you're going to be claiming to do things on command, whereas I'm trying to appeal to things like experience, suffering, well-being, which can be measured. I agree with you in some kind of deep ontological
logic. Yes.
Since maybe I don't even know what I'm talking about, and it's all just crazy. I'm willing to admit that, but it's even crazier for me to think that.
Oh my God, we're on cigarette number 9 now. Smoke them down, Andrew. I'm going to make more banners here. Jesus Christ, this is my last Andrew Wilson cigarette tracker banner. I got to make some more.
Oh, it's a magical invisible deed.
I actually don't believe you, and I think I can demonstrate this as being incorrect. I think that you do appeal to some sort of like magical intrinsic value that you think is a universal ought for all people. I'll give you an example.
I want to give you a chance to
think
think Andrew, but then I also do shortly want to give Dr. Zuckerman a chance to interrogate you as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought he just did, but there's no problem. He can do a longer critique if he wants to.
I'm completely.
If it was the case that there was an ethno-nationalist state which ran all Jewish people out, that's what they did. They want to be an all-white ethno-state, let's say, in this hypothetical.
Oh, I love that you don't consider Jews white. Thank you for that.
Yeah, well,
okay,
I mean, I'm giving a hypothetical. It has nothing to do with my actual view.
Hypothetical is what happened to my grandparents.
Yeah, but I'm giving a hypothetical. It has nothing to do with my view. And what I'm talking about right now didn't happen to anybody's grandparents. It's a hypothetical. So you had a all-white ethno-state. They didn't consider Jewish people white, so we don't want you here anymore. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, well, and people groups get removed all the time. Do you think that people should have the self-determination or right to do that? If they're appealing to democracy, the whole idea for suffering has to be like, if it's going to be the case that there's 100
Okay, they had connection problems, and the funny thing is I saw people talking about this in the comments, and I had only watched up until like, I don't know, it was like at least 45 minutes of it, or so. It wasn't this bad. We're probably gonna get out of here in a minute soon.
Intern Japanese, let's say, 100 intern Japanese, let's say, but there's not going to be any sort of internal terroristic attack. That's still going to be taken into account, right?
Right now,
Jesus Christ,
America has a shortage of over 20,000 gunsmiths.
I would not like it with Japanese history has to be returned. I think that's a
why not?
Oh, why not? I think it's unnecessary suffering.
So if it meets all the confines of secular humanism, you appeal to suffering. Well, so all of the universal values decide to remove one people group that did it based on their self-determination and the maximum happiness and letting out least amount of suffering for the most amount of people. What value would you be appealing to then?
opposing it. So, Andrew, I'm going to try to do this the best I
can. Avoid it.
No, I'm going to say,
Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah. We're getting out of here, guys. It's way choppy now. I have it sped up, but it's way choppy. There's all kinds of pieces missing. You can't fucking understand anything they're saying. All right, guys. This has been Dark Times with Dark Man Steve. I do got to get out of here. I got to eat some food real quick, and then I gotta run to my buddy's house. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging with me. Tomorrow and Friday, we'll see. I have definitely one thing I want to make sure that I get to this week. Just to the stuff I have saved that I want to get to, and we'll see if there's anything, breaking news bullshit that we have to cover. But yeah, if not, I got the next 2 nights streams already planned out for us, lovers. I'm gonna slut it up in here. All right, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. What do we got tomorrow? Fat Pig, you guys are on tomorrow, right? The Pig Pen. Go click over to the Fat Pig's channel here. Subscribe, _fat_pig. And he'll be live with one Chris Thompson over there on the Pigpen Show. You can watch it on either of their channels. Subscribe to both of them. And then we should have Scott Starbird at about 6:15, 6:30 p.m. latest starting after the Pigpen Show. And I'll be up in that chat slutting it up. And then we'll be back over here at about 8 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, lovers, everybody have a good night. I love you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Take care of yourselves. Mwah.